Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, and back again with the man, the myth, the legend, Manpreet Jhass, better known as MMA Lock of the Night, to recap UFC 274, which took place last night. And of course, if you remember, just a few days ago, Manpreet and I, we broke down, we gave our predictions, and now we'll recap it. But first and foremost, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. It's a very important day because moms rule. And Manpreet, how are you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm very great. Weird card last night, but it felt like a legitimate pay per view, so that was nice. But I'm glad that we didn't get 15 fights. I know I kind of jinxed it when we were talking about it on Thursday. Obviously, we lost to Cerrone and Cerrone and Lozon fight. But yeah, it's always great coming off a pay per view card, especially when your boy has a winning night. It makes it a little extra better that way as well. But you know, I'm great, man. I am just ready to chop it up. There's so many things that need to be talked about, and I'm glad that I have an outlet here to let out all those thoughts. Pretty much less than what 24 hours, 12 hours since the fight's concluded. So let's get to it.
Yeah, so let's start. We'll go top to bottom here. Obviously, the main event, which was supposed to be for the UFC Lightweight Championship, Charles Oliveira taking on Justin Gaethje. And I guess before we even can get into the fight, because we broke down the card Thursday, weigh-ins were Friday, and Charles Oliveira is the last one to get on the scale. He misses weight, not once, not twice, but thrice, and eventually is stripped of being the UFC lightweight champion. So the title is vacated. He couldn't win it. I think we're all stunned about this situation. I feel terrible for Charles Oliveira, how he lost the championship, because it's now a part of his legacy, unfortunately, being the first guy to ever lose a UFC championship on the scales. But man, first of all, when you heard the news or were watching the weigh-ins, like what was going on through your head? What were you thinking?
If you guys go over to my channel and turn on the Ultimate Weigh-In Show, you will get my live reaction as well as my guy Alex Bahunin, who was on with me at that time. Because as soon as I went live was when Oliveira was stepping onto the scale for the last time, and I can't believe he actually missed it. Like I had heard obviously that he missed it earlier by a half a pound. I'm like, oh, okay, he has a full hour to cut it now. He should be okay. But Jason, we see these guys behind the scenes and backstage sometimes when they are like really dried out and have no more to cut, you can't even cut half more pounds, right? Like there's no way that you can do it. One that really comes to mind for me way back in the day, shout out to the ghost Jesse Gross. I remember when he used to fight for the Score Fighting Series. There's one moment where he steps on the scale before the weigh-ins and he was still about zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.3 over or something like that, and he's like, okay, let me just go cut the rest of it. He went away for an hour, like he seemed fine, like hopping around happy that he believes he's on weight. Then he sees he still has a little bit more to cut. Then he goes to the back, comes back and sees me, and the guy's looking through me, like just absolutely drained himself just to cut those last 0.3 pounds. So the same thing must have happened to Charles Oliveira, right? I heard there was some debacle regarding the scales and all of that, the two different scales that they had. But yeah, very very unfortunate. I was speechless. Like I was trying to do a show and trying to be entertaining, but I really didn't know what to say. I kept trying to pass it over to Alex, and Alex didn't even know what to say either. So yeah, absolutely speechless. Did yeah, and you see it also actually reflect in the betting line as well, because Charles Oliveira was a minus 170 favorite. By fight time, he was down to minus 130. So a ton of people jumped on Justin Gaethje there, thinking that it was going to be a legitimate way for him to take advantage of the weight miss there for Charles Oliveira. But yeah, we'll continue on with that fight after you get your thoughts in here as well.
I was stunned as well because I honestly I think as well, like there's so much going into it. Like he misses weight, and you want to blame him for maybe not having the best camp. And obviously, once you get to that point, as you said, when that 0.5 pound, you just can't cut because you stop sweating. You can't get that half a pound off. I know everyone thinks it should be easy peasy, but the human body is a wonderful thing, right? And it's a marvelous thing to look at. And he maybe couldn't, but as well, like this scale situation, like it's not just one fighter saying that there was an issue with the
Yeah.
scales. It's a whole bunch of fighters that were around there saying that the commission had messed with the scales and they weren't it wasn't either calibrated correctly, or they weigh in beforehand and they look like they're on weight and then they miss. Like when you see Oliveira miss weight the first time, he's looking around stunned. Like I just weighed myself. Like I was on
Yeah.
weight. I don't understand what's going on. And now we have Dana White saying that, like, I guess going forward, security is going to be around the scales to prevent any situations like this happening again, which I mean is a positive step forward. But I think we're all stunned. I felt bad for Oliveira because he's missed weight now. This would be now the 6th time, but it's like the most memorable time that how many times he's missed weight, losing the belt on the scale. It's never happened in the UFC. And you almost think like that would tarnish his legacy. But then he goes around 24 hours and puts on one of the best performances we've ever seen from Charles Oliveira and from a lightweight in general in a big stage like that. Because Oliveira, we know him for, really evolving his striking game. But I don't think anyone saw his striking game being like that. And he's just such this crazy cat where he can take damage now. And people are afraid to jump in his guard or go for ground and pound because they're going to get tied up in these weird positions. And Gaethje backed off on it. You've seen Dustin Poirier back. Michael Chandler's backed off on from it. So I was just blown away by the performance as well and the resiliency from Charles. Like a lot of guys would probably be in that spot losing their title, just deflated, wanting to go through the motions, get out of there, get out of Phoenix, and live to fight another day. But Oliveira came in, absorbed the Gaethje shots, which I didn't think he'd be able to do, and come back and put Justin Gaethje on his back, and just his reaction time to jump quickly, to go for an inverted triangle, and then eventually get the rear naked choke. I was blown away by the performance, and a performance like that, in a way, kind of makes you forget about the weight miss per se, because now we're not like, oh, this guy missed weight. He's, tarnished his legacy. He's just proved he's maybe the best lightweight in the world still with a performance like that, Manpreet.
Honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. Like you were absolutely on the head there. Because after that performance, I'm just like, oh, forget about the weight miss. Like the guy went out there and continued to prove again that he's the best lightweight in the world by definitively dispatching of Justin Gaethje. Beautiful work from him. Great striking as the striking continues to improve. Like just like you said, you were shocked that he was hurting Justin Gaethje as much as he was on the feet. Earlier in the week, I was kind of hinting at a plus 750 stab on the KO prop for Charles Oliveira. I know everybody's like, you're crazy. Michael Chandler couldn't get him out of there. But like, it's possible. We saw he dropped him numerous times in that fight. And that fight lasted, half a round, barely half a round. There's so much chaos that happened in that amount of time. But that's where Charles Oliveira seems to thrive now, right? He's getting into that Tony Ferguson, that Brandon Royval criteria now, or that category, sorry, I should say, of just introducing chaos into the cage and then thriving within it. Sure, you can drop me. Sure, you can hurt me. Sure, you can be on the brink of winning, but I will come back and I will find that neck eventually. Speaking of which, he now adds to his total of total UFC submissions now on his record at 16. And second place, I believe I said on Thursday as well, Damian Maia at 11. He's going to continue. He might even lap Damian Maia at this point in time. Might get 22 before it's all said and done. But great performance from Charles. Shows that he's the number one guy in the world and obviously deserves to fight for the title next and hopefully be able to get it back. But we'll talk about it right now, Jason. There's some tough guys waiting in the wings for him. I can't wait to see how they match him up moving forward.
Well, Dana says he's the number one contender for a title, which is so weird to say because like he's the champion, but he's not the champion anymore. But he's the number one contender for the property he had literally like 3 days ago. To now potentially fight either an Islam Makhachev, who I know people are trying to get that fight going. I kind of think, we'll talk about Michael Chandler's performance later on, but like what a story it would be to have Chandler Oliveira to the belt vacated yet again. Like it's just the same story, but a different dance this time on through. So that's the fight I think you have to kind of make after that. But don't get me wrong, Islam Makhachev deserves a shot as well. I saw Dustin Poirier on Twitter saying like, I'm the fight. I'm like, well, buddy, I love Dustin Poirier, but you got finished by this guy. So we can't really put you back in the mix.
6 months ago.
6 months ago, basically. And as well, like we got to kind of talk about Justin Gaethje. This was it was almost like the belt was put on a platter for him. All he had to do was just do what he normally does and just go in there, wreck shop. But it was either the first punch that Oliveira landed kind of wobbled Gaethje and maybe took him out of his game plan, because as Mike Tyson says, you have a game plan until you get punched in the face. But like Gaethje has not been himself in championship performances. He's a bridesmaid, never a bride in these type of events. And I don't know what can happen for Justin Gaethje to get around, because he's arguably in that top 5 of the best lightweights in the world. But when the lights have been on bright for him to win a championship, he hasn't come through and performed like the Gaethje we know he can.
Yeah, he has the interim belt to his name, obviously, when he beat Tony Ferguson back in May of 2020. But yeah, you're right. When it's when we're talking about undisputed, going up against Khabib is one task. So
Yeah.
if he loses there, we get that. But even Charles Oliveira, right? People were starting to give him his respect. But we said it on Thursday. We thought he was getting too much respect now on the betting line. I felt like the betting line that came into Saturday night at -130 was way more accurate of how close this fight actually could be. The thing is the evolution and the development of Charles Oliveira's striking makes it so much cleaner and crisper down the middle. Whereas Justin Gaethje, yeah, he's a great boxer, and yeah, Trevor Whitman has really molded him into this great technical boxer, essentially. But he's still a little bit wide and winging with the shots. Whereas Charles Oliveira, if you see his stance, he's very tight, very Muay Thai-esque, and when he throws the shots, they're right down the middle. They get to the target very quickly, whereas Justin Gaethje's kind of looping around a little bit more. Gaethje will always be one of those top 5 guys, right? If you don't mind, could you pull up how old he is? Because I don't think he's that old. I still feel he has a couple solid years to be hanging around in that top 5. And there's a tremendous amount of fights.
He's 33. He'll be 34 in November.
So let's call it 2.5 to 3 more years. So maybe 5 to 6 more solid fights left in him. There's a ton of matchups that you can still line him up with at lightweight, right? There's the Beneil Dariush fight. Why not give him Beneil Dariush now? Right? It seems like Islam Makhachev is finally going to get that title shot. It seems like Joe Rogan might be the reason as to why he's getting the title shot. I know you listened to the press conference last night as well, where Dana's like, they really want to do Islam and Beneil, but Joe Rogan's like, leave that fight. Just give it to Islam. That's the closest we're ever going to get to seeing Charles Oliveira against Khabib, essentially. So let's just give it to us now. Let Beneil go out there and fight, as you said, either Gaethje. I wouldn't even mind seeing him fight Chandler for another number 1 contender spot, because Beneil definitely deserves it. He's one of those top 5 guys that has a plethora of wins, a solid winning streak, and he's been damn entertaining while doing so. But yeah, shout out to Justin Gaethje, man. Absolute warrior. Always goes in there and pours his heart out. And last thing I'll leave with you here, Jason, before we move on, the violence on Charles Oliveira's record continues. It was I believe it was 15 out of his last 16 fights have finished under 2.5. Make it 16 out of 17 now. It's just crazy the amount of violence that this guy goes out there. The only fight to go the full 15 was his fight against Tony Ferguson, where he just controlled him the entirety of that. But outside of that, been finishing dudes or been getting finished prior to his 11-fight winning streak.
Yeah, I'm still blown away by the performance of Charles Oliveira, a guy that makes us forget about a disaster for him. And now he probably is obviously the number 1 contender to get the belt back. And the last thing on this weight miss, I know a lot of people were saying like, oh, they should just give him the belt because he had that performance. Like, there's rules. There's rules for a reason. I'm sorry. You have to make weight at a championship level. You have to be 155 or 170 on the dot. You can't be the point over or a pound over. He's the uncrowned champion once again, but you can't just give him the belt for the sake of it. I know UFC can maybe make up some rules or whatever, but that's what commissions are for, to enforce those rules, and the UFC always abides by what a commission says.
The thing also would be, if they make this one exception, anybody who ever misses weight in the future is going to point back to this. So I get it. Stick with the rules, but as long as Charles Oliveira's next fight is for that gold, that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and we obviously think it will be. It'll be interesting where they do it. I saw Khabib saying that if it's Makhachev, they should do it in Abu Dhabi, which we know is lined up for October.
Wow. You should have home field advantage. Championship.
That's what I'm saying. That, the world's opening up, and LFA's had like 3 or 4 shows in Brazil. Why not go back to Brazil with Charles Oliveira as the champion, or as the number 1 contender fighting for the belt that he's trying to get back that he had? Why not? I think that's the fight that you have to that's where I would like to see the fight in Brazil at some point this year. But we obviously have to wait and see how that thing kind of plays out. But once again, Charles Oliveira was insane, and a good end to this show as well. We'll sent the crowd off on a high, and the pay-per-view viewers as well, like us, out on a high. But the co-main event here, Manpreet, was
do we have
unfortunately we do. It was on the card. It was an interesting fight, a fight that was going head-to-head with the Canelo Alvarez Dimitri Bivol fight, which was an interesting fight in its own right due to the Bivol, how much he took that fight to Canelo Alvarez. And I think a lot of people, myself included, were more focused on Canelo Alvarez. So I caught up on, watched the fight in full this morning. What a weird fight. Like, I don't know what the game plan was for both girls. Maybe it was because Rose had already lost to Carla Esparza to not really try to initiate too much. Esparza went in for those takedowns a couple times, didn't really get them or keep good ground control of Rose Namajunas, but they were enough to win the round because I guess if you're going on effective striking, grappling, and octagon control was there a lot. We don't normally go on that judging criteria, but Carla Esparza wins a split decision and is once again the UFC strawweight champion. Manpreet, a weird fight, one that maybe tainted the legacy of both these girls. But we have a new champion, and once again, Carla Esparza now 2-0 against Rose Namajunas.
I want to be happy for Carla. Like, I really do. This is a big moment for her to finally get that strap back after, I believe it was my guy Andrew Gombis on Twitter saying that it was like 2,000 plus days, 2,100 days since the last time she held that gold. And she stayed with it. She persevered. She had some ups and downs. Recently, it's mostly been up, and she finally got that title shot again. And Dana White, I think, reluctantly going out there and putting the belt on her. But I really want to be happy for her, but that fight just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, everybody that was involved. And just seeing kind of how Rose is going about it was, a little bit sketchy. I get it. You have to be a little delusional at times to be a super, a successful person, right? But with her, it was as soon as the bell rang, you see her kind of go out there and almost flip off the crowd. I'm pretty sure she said "F you guys" like to the crowd because she was so confident in her own game plan, right? And her corner was asserting that to her as well. They're like, "Hey,
Yeah,
you hear the boos? That's what you want to be hearing because that means you're winning the fight." And essentially, it doesn't, right? They both see like there's not many shots landing. There's not much activity. A lot of those shots, are hitting air essentially for both women. But Carla Esparza is the one trying to, close the distance and go for takedowns. So I kind of understand why they're scoring it for her. But man, what a shout out to Joe Rogan as well, though, for like continuously shitting on that fight round by round, calling it a stinker, calling it bad, calling it worse
everyone
than
was on the
Derek
broadcast. They
Lewis.
were all like,
Yeah,
"This is a terrible fight." And I mean, it's one of those things. It's tough where you're trying to make the best of it, but you can't deceive your audience. What we're all seeing, we all have eyes. We can't be
yeah.
like, "This is fantastic." This was almost like a sparring session for both girls, like working on footwork and feinting. Like there was no real effort until the fourth round, where Carla Esparza like
Yeah.
really had success with like a couple takedowns.
Yeah, I never really heard that kind of tone from John Anik before either, right? Like he seemed very like upset, pissed off as well. And I'm not sure about you, but they plugged in a lot of sponsors and ad
Oh,
reads during that fight, more than they've ever done before. And rightfully so. You might as well plug some crap in if there's nothing actually going on. But yeah, very, very bad fight. Good win for Carla for actually getting the title there. Boo hoo for Rose Namajunas, how she's kind of approaching it. She's even saying how she didn't really like being salty, but she is salty. She believes she wants the fight, but you got to go back and watch that fight. There's no winner. There's no winner. You could have given 10-10 in one of those rounds, and I think it would have been justified, honestly. But yeah, nobody's clamoring for the rematch either, which kind of sucks for Rose, considering that, was it Thursday? I believe me and you actually, I was talking about it with Alex on Friday. We're talking about Rose being the GOAT of this division now, right? But like, is there enough reason to give her an immediate title shot? I don't know.
well, now there's a lot of intrigue. Like Jessica Andrade pretty much coming out and saying that she's going to
Yeah,
take Carla Esparza's head off, and
I love it.
when they fight again, I mean, hey, Jessica just looked great a couple weeks ago back in this division, so why not? Obviously, we have Joanna and Wei Li. They're fighting again next month at UFC 275 in Singapore. But yeah, just a weird and a bad look for both girls when the president of the UFC asked about the fights. Like, I don't know, I kind of zoned out in the middle of it. Like, not a good look for both those girls when the head of the company is not really paying attention and would rather be anywhere else than watching you guys fight in the co-main event. Just an odd style fight, and really brings up, I think it was you that tweeted it out, like the championship style that you got to beat the champion. Like there were moments there where Carla was like, really, you could give her like the real clear round you could give her was 4. But if anyone gave Rose like the first 3 rounds, you can make a case for it to an extent. But honestly, it was such a weird style fight, one that I hope we never see again from anyone, really.
Yeah, that honestly cracked me up when Darius said that he's zoning out there. That pretty much sums up what the fight was. I'm hoping that the next one is a little bit more of a barn burner. I would be happy with Jessica Andrade stepping in there and possibly getting the next title shot. But let's let Carla go get married, right? Let's go let her enjoy the honeymoon phase of the wedding and all that type of stuff, and then we'll talk about it maybe in a couple weeks. But we obviously have Joanna and Zhang coming up, I believe, at 275 or 275. I believe that's next month. And then Andrade is also waiting in the wings. So it seems like we're going to get familiar faces and title shots over the next little while. But, until another contender really rises to the occasion, Marina Rodriguez is kind of the other one that I'm thinking about. But I feel like she needs at least one more fight before she gets a title fight. So throw in, maybe Rose against Marina Rodriguez or Andrade against Marina Rodriguez. Try to see if there's another new face that we can crack in that top 5 for this division. Otherwise, it's just going to be reuse, recycle, pretty much same thing, repeat, right?
Don't want to stay on this fight that much, but there's so much intrigue coming out of it, especially from Rose's corner. Like Trevor Whitman, one of the smartest minds, telling her she's up 4 rounds to nothing. Once again, this is 0-2 for coaches telling their fighters this year they're up 4 rounds to nothing. Never tell your fighter that they're up 4 rounds to nothing because that's a bad, be, open, honest. But this is a fight where who knew? Like, you didn't know up until round 4 who probably won a round. Like, you can't be that, have the wool over your own eyes of your own fighter. And I'm just shocked that Trevor Whitman had that kind of logic for Rose going into that 5th round. You're up 4 to nothing. Well, cool. I'll just go on cruise control in a fight where no one could afford to be on cruise control. And then as well, like Rose's handling of it, obviously disappointed to lose a title, but I don't think it's the best of look, basically saying that, oh yeah, well, when they're booing Carla. Well, you were the one, you were coming forward at times, but you weren't engaging or doing anything. It's a two-way street in a fight. So you got to take some of the blame for yourself as well.
I found it interesting during the press conference that she talked about 1 or 2 punches that she landed during the fight. I'm like, it's a 25-minute fight. You know what I mean? It's not 1 or 2 punches that decides who wins this fight. You know what I mean? It's a multitude of punches and combinations and action. There was barely any action in this fight. So, yeah, I can't believe we got that much of a stinker over 25 minutes. I had a bet on the under 4.5, thinking that one of these girls was going to end up getting the finish because there would be grappling that would be involved there. And I really thought that, Rose showed great, when there was grappling involved, she showed great defense. She got out of bad positions. She got back to her feet. And if she trusted in that a little bit more, I think she would have been able to go out there and actually throw some more strikes, have some confidence behind her striking, and knowing even if she got taken down, she can get back to her feet. So, we can move on. we can move on.
I have so many other thoughts. Like, is Keith Peterson, should he be implemented for trying to force action? Where is the yellow card in Pride? Come on, action!
Yeah. Not just that, Keith. I think he left a no nonsense at home this week. What happened? Even earlier, I forgot which fight it was.
Cool.
There's a fight where a fighter just kept grabbing the cage and he didn't even warn them.
That was the CJ Vergara fight. Yeah. He literally kept on full mount grabbing the fence and throwing punches with the one. Bro, this is not 1997. You cannot do that.
Keith, get your shit together, man. You're one of the best referees we ever have. We don't need you kind of falling off the pedestal that we currently have you on. But Keith is slightly more. I'd say he's kind of accountable for this, right? You got to give him some blame as well for not getting these fighters to engage a little bit more. That's the referee's job, right? If there's no action, you got to give them something to score. You got to give the judges something to score, and that's on Keith to kind of tell them to engage a little bit more. But didn't happen. He was content.
Yeah, you cannot let in Ryzen or back in the Pride days or Dream action. If you're doing that, they stop the fight, someone's getting a yellow card and getting fined because they're not doing anything. You can't just stand out there having footwork. That's nice. You showcase that skill. But this is mixed martial arts. You got to showcase the martial arts skills you have in the cage. I don't know. I know for sure we had, Herb Deeb wasn't there, but he would have definitely been saying that. Mark Goddard, for sure, who ref the main event, would have been like, come here, you two, stop. We need some action or something. But Keith was just cool, circling the whole 25 minutes and whatever. I don't know. It was not a good look for Keith Peterson. And for a night that was not really a weekend that was not good for the Arizona State Athletic Commission at all in a lot of ways. And we'll probably get to that as we go on. But now, finally done. We'll move on here. We'll move on to some real excitement on this card, which was Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chandler. And Manpreet, we talked about this being really a must-win kind of for both guys. Like Tony needed to have a good performance to get out of this rut that he's in. And Michael Chandler, he couldn't afford to be 1-3 in the UFC, considering how big of a deal it was for him to come into the UFC out of Bellator and things of that nature. And El Kukui looked like El Kukui of old in that first round, connecting on Chandler, dropping him, and it looked like maybe Tony Ferguson's found the form. He's back in a state with a lot of fanfare due to it being Cinco de Mayo weekend. But the round ends. We come out 17 seconds into the second round. Michael Chandler literally looked like he was a punter for the Arizona Cardinals, put his toes right through the jaw of Tony Ferguson. And Tony Ferguson does something we didn't even know was possible. Face plants and is like severely KO'd. Like it was a scary situation there for a while. Thankfully, Tony is okay and was discharged from the hospital today. But what a knockout from Michael Chandler. A knockout that he desperately needed. And now sets himself up to either fight for this vacant lightweight title at 155 pounds, or he called out Conor McGregor. And not only did he call out Conor McGregor, Conor seems kind of down with it at 170 pounds at some point. I know Dana keeps reiterating Conor isn't ready, so we'll have to go on Conor's schedule when he's fully 100% ready to go back inside the octagon. But where does this knockout rank for you, Manpreet? Because it's, in terms of, front kick knockouts, it's number one for me. Because I know that Anderson and Lyoto, when they did it with the bottom of their foot. This was toes up, and it was just so brutal and everything of that nature. And who they did it on. Like Tony Ferguson, he's taken some shots and been wobbled, but never been faceplant KO'd, like nearly died.
Never been KO'd, period. Never been KO'd at all, right? So first ever KO loss on his record. Very, very, it was sad to see, considering that he looked so good in round one. Right. Yeah. He had so much success against Chandler. He was really letting him up there. And then obviously to fall victim to that in the second round, not a good look. But in terms of where it ranks, man, it got to be a top 10 KO of all time. In terms of front kick KOs specifically, I think the aesthetic of how Ferguson falls and just is laid out adds to the mystique of that knockout even more. Right. Like with Vitor kind of gets rocked and he gets dropped. With Couture, he loses his tooth, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think Machida kicked his tooth out, but he wasn't like completely out. Ferguson was out for minutes, right? Like for a solid minutes, he was out. And yeah, I think that's got to make it the best front kick KO of all time. The snap on that, and again, the way, like you said, how he landed with the toes as well, couldn't have been more clean. The images that are coming out now of Ferguson's head kind of like freeze framed as soon as he gets kicked, reminiscent of Chito Vera and Frankie Edgar from earlier this year or late last year, I believe it was. Yeah, best front kick knockout. Best front kick knockout.
100%. I don't think any, and also it's from Michael Chandler, who has he ever thrown a front kick like that ever in his career? Like, we know Michael Chandler, what he can throw leg kicks, he's gonna land a good combination, and he's gonna use wrestling if he needs to. But I don't think anyone saw on our bingo card Michael Chandler front kicking anyone. Like, also the size discrepancy too is kind of unique as well. That was what made this so wild and probably unexpected for Tony and everyone involved. But man, what a knockout. And what a promo by Michael Chandler after the fact, because he's just really found his groove and bought into pro wrestling or whatever it may be, but calls his shot to fight, Oliveria or Gaethje again, and then says, hey, I want to fight Conor McGregor. And not in that simple terms. He put a lot more sauce on it. But, hey, I'm down with that McGregor fight at some point. Look, Chandler's been a sensational free agent signing because he puts on entertaining fights. He's going to cause you zero PR nightmare issues at all. He's like great for that. And why not? Like, let's give him Conor. And Conor, I don't think anyone really wants to see at 155 anymore. He's been bulking back up. Go to 170. Let Chandler go to 170 and test his skills there whenever Conor is ready. But a hell of a performance here for Michael Chandler and a win he desperately needed.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And I'm glad that you brought up his work on the mic because since coming into the UFC, I guess he still did in Bellator as well. But even in his first win in the UFC against Dan Hooker, he really killed it on the mic there. And he does everything like physically as well to drive his point home, right? Like he has his veins popping out and he's really getting into it and just really trying to, drive that point home. And he's killing it. He does a very, very good job for sure. In regards to how we match him up moving forward, the Connor fight's obviously intriguing, but for me, let's get Connor's feet wet again. Let's give him the Nate Diaz fight. Let's get that trilogy out of the way. The fire of that is slowly burning out. It might already be burnt out, but I'm sure as soon as they schedule that matchup, and more than likely people will be right back on it. And it's great way for McGregor to get it back out there and get a W under his belt. Right? Let's get some momentum under him again. Not to mention after coming off that devastating knee or leg injury, he needs to dip his toes in the water again, and he can't throw him to a savage like Michael Chandler right away. Because sure, stylistically, if McGregor is back on point at least 80% of what he used to be, he could pinpoint snipe Michael Chandler and put his lights up. Absolutely, that's possible. But Chandler's going to put it on him from the jump, and if McGregor's not ready at all, he could end up losing again, right? And the last thing you want is another loss on McGregor's record when he still has, money fights still left for him. How long is that allure of McGregor going to be around if he goes out there and continuously takes L's and takes losses? So give me Diaz and McGregor first, and then let's do Chandler after that. With Chandler, there's a couple other ways that we can go, right? But Neil Dariush is another one that I threw out there where I'm like, match Benny up with one of those guys, Chandler, Gaethje, get him into a number one contender fight because clearly Oliveira and Islam is next. But Chandler, stamps his way into a solid spot to be in title contention, maybe one or two fights away.
Well, it's also, to your point, a good win for Chandler to just give himself options because there's whether he fights for a vacant title, whether he fights a number one contender in Dariush, as you said, or you wait and see with Conor McGregor. Like there's options, and not a lot of guys at 155 or in the UFC have that many options where they can kind of bounce around and get that golden ticket potentially of Conor McGregor. On your point of, I guess, the mystique and the aura of Conor McGregor, to me, it's totally worn off. I don't see where like this guy. I don't think he's got a round basically. He's got 5 minutes to pretty much put it on, and then we've seen him kind of gas out and things of that nature, and hasn't really taken the sport as seriously. Obviously, maybe he was starting to, and then that crippling injury that he got in the the third Poirier fight, hurt him there. But I just think that the luster's a little bit gone. And I know the UFC wants to keep that, and he's going to sell 10 bajillion pay-per-views because he will. He's still that. But I don't think Conor McGregor, the fighter, is going to be as exciting as he was, 2013 through 15.
Honestly, and now I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. When they matched up Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor for the third time, what was your hype level for that? If you recall, I believe it was July of last year, if I'm not mistaken.
My hype level was there because I thought this is Dustin's moment to really break through. He's going to probably win again. But the buzz and the hype going into that, it was just kind of uncomfortable. Like it wasn't the same what we saw in January from last year. When we got to July, it was too personal, and I didn't want to see that. I just wanted to see, a good fight. And I just thought Conor was trying to go to Conor from 2013 where he thought he was super clever on the mic, and he came off cringe. And the buzz wasn't there as much because also I'd already just seen in January Dustin kind of take it to you. Bingo. And I thought that's the exact same thing's going to happen again. So hopefully maybe if he moves up to 170, full new ankle and all, we can maybe get a couple more wins for Conor McGregor. I mean, that's what the UFC is praying for. But Conor McGregor as like elite level fighter, Conor McGregor, I think has seen its days.
Yeah, even from like a popularity perspective and just being hyped for a Conor McGregor fight, it was not there for me at all in July, right? I'm like, why did they book this fight so quickly again? Let's get another fresh fight in there. Dustin Poirier doesn't, for him, it's obviously great for a paycheck and all that stuff, but like it proves nothing else, right? He beat him definitively in January. It's not like it was a close split decision loss, and now it's not like it was really back and forth that much. Dustin Poirier worked him, he finished him. So there's no need for that rematch. I was getting crap online from everybody saying that I was honestly more excited and more interested in Wonder Boy versus Gilbert Burns, which was on the same card there, because that's a fresh matchup. Both guys, in a very interesting spot at that welterweight division. And everybody's like, "You're crazy," it's a McGregor fight week. I'm like, yeah, I get it. And the casuals are going to be all over it just because it's McGregor. But as a diehard MMA fan, I don't need to see this fight again so quickly. Give us a year between it. Give us 2 years. Didn't turn out that way. And like you said, even the lead up for it got very ugly. It got very uncomfortable. It just was not. It was not good. It was not good. And then McGregor totally pays for it by breaking his leg as well.
I'm just shocked. You've mentioned the third Diaz McGregor fight. Like, I'm shocked it hasn't happened already, or
Yeah.
even potentially been made. Like, this is a fight that's guaranteed money. It would be the perfect way for Nate Diaz to end this UFC contract. Everyone's going to want to see it. They're both 1-1. They've both been great fights. They mean both so much to each other as their paths cross. I'm just shocked that UFC hasn't done it, and I don't know when we're going to hear Nate Diaz fight. I know we had that rumored Khamzat Chimaev fight, which Dana White said that's just a placeholder on our war room board.
Sure.
So sure it is, Dana. When 95% of everything else you announced was 100% accurate. So I don't know. Just this to me makes the most sense. Why not? If you want to get Conor a fight that's going to sell and be intrigued, just do that one. If you don't want to do Michael Chandler, do Diaz. I think Chandler has a chance to get this McGregor fight at some point, but I don't know why they haven't done it. Like, the UFC always seems to know when to do it. Like, if you weren't going to do it after the second within a year, you had 2 years. But now we're getting to the point where it's like, the last Sugar Ray Leonard Tommy Hearns fight, where it was way past its point, and it was like the geriatrics club of boxing, and we could get that for MMA. So I don't know. I'm shocked that they haven't done it, but yeah, we of course, when Conor's been thrown around, you always got to go on the Conor McGregor side street, and that's where we just did. But a good win for Michael Chandler. Manpreet, where do you see from Tony Ferguson? Because Dana, I think, had the right answer, saying Tony needs to take a lot of time off and then come back. And he did make a point. He didn't look terrible in that fight. He just got caught with one of the best knockouts in the history of the sport.
That was if Ferguson was going to lose. Okay, maybe not in such devastating fashion, but at least show that he still has what it takes to be somewhat competitive. And I was saying it all week, like, stylistically speaking, this is not the same fight as Beneil Dariush. This is not the same fight as Charles Oliveira. It's not the same fight as Justin Gaethje. It's a winnable fight for Chandler or Ferguson to fight a guy like Chandler, who he could have a striking advantage over, especially considering how unorthodox he is with his approach. And he showed it in that first round, man. Chandler was in trouble. He was in big trouble. And we probably could have saw Tony Ferguson get his hand raised. I would have loved to see that fight go even further, right? If Chandler didn't land that front kick, how does Ferguson continue to look? And, by all accounts, one of the best cardio in the UFC. So he probably would have looked great comes rounds 2 and 3. I wouldn't mind seeing him take some time off just to kind of recover from such a brutal knockout. But let's match him up against somebody that's not in the top 5, right? Let's give him a winnable fight. Not saying, feed him somebody at the bottom of the barrel right now, but give him somebody where you can still have a competitive fight, somebody that doesn't have crazy knockout power, and somebody that doesn't have crazy good jiu-jitsu where they can control him on the mat. Give him a fight that he can maybe win. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, anybody in the top 15 that fits that mold. Nobody's coming to mind as of this moment. When I flip it on over to you, I'll check out the rankings and see if I can find somebody. But yeah, sit out the rest of the year, come back maybe early 2023 and give him a much more favorable fight.
Yeah, that was a scary knockout too, because he was totally glassy-eyed from when he left the cage. I don't know, like, when you look at the rankings, like, there's, Dos Anjos is ahead of him in the rankings, but that's not a good matchup. Maybe a Gregor Gillespie for the style that Gregor brings with the grappling. I don't know where you want, but for what I want to see right now, I want to see Tony Ferguson get some serious time off, because that was a brutal KO that he suffered. So who knows where we go? Maybe they do Dan Hooker. I don't know, but there are options out there.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, that was the one that I was going to say. Dan Hooker. I was thinking Diego Ferreira, but Ferreira could potentially just ground him and do the same thing that Beneil was able to do. Brad Riddell, a little bit too hard of a puncher for him. Rafael Fiziev, a little bit too hard of a puncher for him. Sarukian, way too good of a grappler. Gamrot, probably way too good of a grappler. So I think what we're getting at here, Jason, is that time is starting to pass him by, and he cannot be really competitive with a lot of these guys. But there's got to be fun fights still left for him. Maybe he goes up to 170 and has a couple fun fights up there as well, right? That's absolutely possible.
bring Lando Venata up from featherweight to take on
Done.
Tony
Let's get that
Ferguson.
rematch.
Let's get that fight going again. It's a winnable fight, and we all remember how exciting the first one was that we touched on Thursday. And then we'll go to the light heavyweight fight, Ovince St. Preux, Mauricio Shogun Rua. Man, this one was sad. Honestly, this one really upset me for how sad it was to see. It wasn't even really a great performance from OSP either, but he did enough to win the fight, came forward, landed the better combinations against Shogun, who looked his age, honestly. And I know he says he wants to have, two more, this included in that too. And Dana's going to give him that last fight to ride out in the sunset. But I never need to see Shogun fight again. Want to talk about overstaying your welcome in the sport. That's where Shogun is right now. He's overstaying his welcome. He's hurting his legacy for a guy that had the best run in a tournament ever in Pride back in 2005. A guy that was a former UFC lightweight champion and one of the best, light heavyweight champion, and one of the best light heavyweights of all time. And now people are just gonna know him as this old guy that didn't know when to get out.
Yeah, and it's sad when your fighter gets there, right? Like Chuck Liddell obviously went through that. A bunch of other guys that they had such a great legacy, and then they're just like, you know what? Let me try to get a couple more, and maybe I can go off on a win. And there's a guy like Joe Lozon who has the most. We'll talk about it obviously very shortly, but he had probably the best send off you could have. Your hometown, get a big win over a rising prospect in dominant fashion. Maybe that's what Shogun Ho is trying to capture, but that he's never going to be able to capture that, honestly. I do actually want to hear your thoughts in regards to the judging for this one. So it was a split decision. I do think the rightful person won this fight. Obviously, Ovince St. Preux gets his hand raised, but it's the judge that I really want to touch upon here, Junichiro Kamijo. So he had 3 decisions where he was the judge with the dissenting judge, essentially. But he was also the only judge that gave Trinaldo a 10-8 against Danny Roberts in round 2. What do you make of his scoring? Because he was the one that scored it for Rodriguez. He was the one that scored it for Dumont, and he was the one that scored it for Shogun. And then obviously that 10-8 that I mentioned. What do you think of his work there?
He had a rough night at the office. I'm not gonna lie. He was all over the place. I don't understand. Shogun. I thought won the second round, but that's the only round I could definitely give Shogun. I think the right person won. OSP won. He didn't live up to his promise, saying it would be much more violent and quicker than the first time they met, when 34 seconds. And maybe I wished he had. It would have put us out of the misery of having to see Shogun like how he fought and how much of a legend he is. But yeah, Junichiro Kamijo, he had a rough night at the office, really, overall on this card. As you said, he was the dissenting judge here. He had it 30-26, which, okay, I can see the 30-26, but yeah, 29-28 for Shogun in this fight. I don't see it at all.
Yeah, according to fan scoring here on MMA Decisions, there's 58% of people that believe that Shogun won round 1, and 70% of people that believe Shogun won round 2 as well. And then obviously St. Preux definitely won round 3. But I thought OSP deserved it. Staying on the outside, using the leg kicks up the middle, you can see the damage almost immediately on Shogun's torso there. But yeah, we're going to go through all the fights, so we'll talk about the other decisions when we get there. But yeah, Shogun, man, please just let it go. Before the fight started, I tweeted, OSP, please make this painless and quick.
They did not. It was like a long battle.
It was painless and long.
It was a long battle with cancer, pretty much. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Not a quick, pretty much you have 3 months to live type of a fight. Fortunately, it was not a good time. But obviously, we were supposed to start this show off with Cowboy Cerrone and Joe Lozon. That doesn't happen. Cowboy, I guess, came down with food poisoning, couldn't keep food down, kept throwing up. So obviously he can't fight. A bummer, because that was a fight we were both looking forward to. And I think a lot of, diehard fans were, two, real veterans of mixed martial arts that, were to fight. They're maybe thinking about doing that again. That's what Dana White said at the press conference. But Lozon doesn't think Cowboy wants to cut to 155 again. So we'll see what happens on that. But the fight that gets bumped up to kick off the main card, I was very happy with that. This was the fight where it's supposed to be the feature prelim fight, Randy Brown taking on Chaos Williams. And this was, not the type of fight I thought it would be, but it was a real good back and forth competitive fight where Randy was really slow getting out of the blocks, and that's always dangerous with someone like a Chaos Williams who's got that serious power and did clip Randy a couple times early in that first round. But then, Brown turned the gear up. He got things going in the second round, and I thought was able to win a 29-28 decision on my scorecard. He ends up winning a split decision, 29-28 over Chaos Williams, and definitely moves himself inside the top 15 of this division now, and really shows what we thought. He's become a much more evolved fighter, and you can't always just rely on your power if you're Chaos Williams, but Chaos still proves also that power is a good thing to have in any division, because he had moments there where I thought, oh, this is the end of Randy Brown.
Yeah, started off slow, like you said, really picked up in that second round, and it felt like he got into this flow state, right? He's, dodging punches very well. Head movement was great. His punching was great. His countering was great. Everything looked super crisp in that second round. I don't think we've ever seen a better version of Randy Brown other than that, other than seeing what he did in round 2 there. In the third round, things got a little bit fishy though, right? He gets rocked and dropped, but luckily his urgency to get back to the feet really allowed him to really get that round back. I'm seeing a lot of confusion with people saying, if you get rocked and dropped in a round, you automatically lose that round. I disagree if you're able to put together a good, solid work around the getting dropped, because he was winning up until getting dropped. He gets dropped. He spends 20 seconds on his back. Then he starts working back to his feet and then unloads a bunch more strikes and a lot of more significant strikes and landing cleanly on Chaos Williams to end the round. I believe it swung right back to Randy Brown after that, right? You can't just, drop the guy one time and think that's going to be enough. It also reminds me of Brad Riddell versus Magomed Mustafayev, where Riddell drops him right at the beginning of the round, and then Mustafayev turns it into a takedown, and he just controls him for the rest of the round. Literally like 4 minutes and 20 seconds of control time after getting dropped. But judging was perfect on this one. Well, it was a split decision, but I believe the two actual judges that got it correctly got it right. Rounds 2 and round 3, great work from him. And shout out again, the gambling addict in me. Shout out to anybody that took Randy Brown by decision at plus 325. Absolutely crazy good line, especially considering how durable Chaos Williams is. But great performance from Randy Brown. Can't wait to see him back in there.
Shout out to me for taking Randy Brown money line, and the judges coming through and helping me out there and winning some money there. My only bet that came through. So thank you, Randy Brown, and thank you, the judges. But this is the judging here is interesting as well, especially that third round, because you bring up the point of, you knock someone down, you pretty much win the round. And that just comes from the boxing mentality of where this 10-8 must system comes from. Like, you knock someone down in boxing, instant 10-8 round. And MMA, you can knock someone down, but that person can stay alive. They can scramble. They can get the fight back to the feet, or they can get some good control on the ground. And that's where the vagueness of the 10-8, the 10-9 must system in MMA really comes into play. Like, sure, Chaos has a case to win the third round, but I think the overall body of work that Randy did in that third round was enough for him to win that round and eventually win the fight. And I don't know where we go with Randy Brown next, but this is a guy I feel that's definitely got to find his way inside the top 15 of the welterweight division now.
Gotta, right? There's a lot of guys that in that like 10 to 15 range that can start to match him up with against to see, whether he has what it takes. Like he is a very talented guy. He has a couple good wins under his belt right now. I believe his winning streak started with him getting that one arm rear naked choke against Alex Cowboy Oliveira, wins his next fight against Jared Gooden, and now a big win over Chaos Williams. Let's give him, somebody on the fringe top 15. Let's give him Li Jing Liang. Let's give him Jeff Neal. Maybe one of those guys. I wouldn't mind seeing him test his might against. And we've really seen him grow up in the UFC, right? I remember back when he fought Mickey Gall several years ago. Like, he's really developed into a solid fighter here. And seeing him get into that flow state that I was talking about earlier, it's a thing of beauty. Like it was. I love watching guys evade punches the way that he did, and then coming back with counters of his own. Chef's kiss. Beautiful work from Randy Brown there. Can't wait to see how they match him up moving forward.
Yeah, I thought this was a great stylistic matchup, a great matchmaking by the UFC. And as well, I like seeing someone kind of develop and grow before your eyes. And that's where we're at right now with Randy Brown. As you said, he's now won 3 in a row. He's won 5 of his last 6 fights. The only loss that Randy Brown had was not too long ago inside the octagon where he lost. Yeah, Vicente Luque, yes. back in August of 2020. But yeah, good for Randy Brown, and there are some fun matchups. Like maybe that I like that Li Jingliang matchup. I think that's a good test for both guys, and Randy would come in and probably take the 13th spot in that division going on. And for Chaos Williams too, like you're still seeing the growth of a guy, not relying on his power and really becoming a complete mixed martial artist. Just things didn't go his way, and anyone that has power like that also will always be loved by the UFC.
No, I agree. When you're that entertaining, both guys, you're always going to have a spot on the roster as long as you don't go on a 4 or 5 fight losing skid or anything like that.
Moving on here to the final prelim, which would have been the Randy Brown fight, but now staying in the welterweight division as well. Francisco Trinaldo taking on Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. Francisco Trinaldo is going to be like 44 years old in August. And I don't know how he put out a performance like that, but what a performance. He hurt Roberts multiple times, did a lot of damage, could have maybe found a way to finish him if he, kept putting the pressure on and putting ground and pound and solid strikes on. But, I said to you, I believe on Thursday, like Francisco Trinaldo, a veteran of the UFC, been in there since 2011. He's a guy that like if you look back at his career, like he's had fights, you've seen him, you maybe not remember his performances. I will always remember this performance for how much he put on Danny Robertson. Really, turn back the clock as well. A great win here for Francisco Trinaldo, who's now picked up a big decision win and as well got one judge to score the fight, 30-26 for him. And I would agree. I thought I gave the third round the 10-8 round.
I believe it was the second round for me that I gave the 10-8 for, and that's the one that Camijo gave him the 10-8 as well. Yeah, phenomenal performance. That was my hesitation in terms of picking Danny Roberts. Is he will likely be the better overall fighter, but it's just his ability to take damage. I just don't like it, man. He's not that durable. Although he did manage to see the judges' scorecards here, he was damn close not, right? And that's always the concern with Danny Roberts. And when you fight a guy like Trinaldo, and the big power that he has, man, you're always going to be live. That's the last thing that's always going to leave a fighter. And the fact that he still has that 43 years old shows that he can go out there and still be competitive with some of these younger guys. So big win for Trinaldo, big win. But where does he go? What does he do? Like, what's left for the guy at 44 years old? How much longer do you want to fight?
Yeah, it's pretty much, he's on his time. He's a good soldier of the UFC, been in there for over a decade. He'll get a matchup and we'll see where it goes. But nonetheless, like a great win for him. And for Danny Roberts, just got to find a way to evade some punches and take less damage, as you said. Like a good fighter, but he does get hit a lot. And, can't get any hit from some of these big, huge welterweights that Trinaldo is and going forward. Moving on to the women's featherweight fight, Macy Chiasson, Norma Dumont. As we said, wow, a 145 women's fight on this card. And we had it. Macy Chiasson, she looked good. But credit to Norma Dumont, who, a lot of times in fights where you're losing, and, I thought losing pretty decisively going into that third round, they just break. They don't really want to come forward. I thought, give credit to Norma Dumont. She came forward. She tried everything to turn the tide, hit Chiasson with some good combinations that did hurt and sting her. But it just wasn't enough. The full body work and the wrestling pedigree that Chiasson brought to the table was good enough. Now, this is one of the weirder scorecards, in my opinion, that your boy, Junichiro Kamijo, he scored the fight for Norma Dumont. I don't see that one at all. I see her winning the third round, but I don't see her winning the fight as a whole. I thought Chiasson's pressure up against the fence or getting the fight to the ground was pretty solid. It's a good win for Chiasson, but that was one of those weird judging moments where I was like, we're going to be in for a weird night with the judges tonight.
There again, according to MMA decisions here, 65 scorecards from the fans. 55% of those people believe that Dumont actually won round one. So there is some argument that there could have been a round one win there for Dumont. But yeah, she definitely won round three. She's putting it on her, which I found very interesting because Chiasson had 4 minutes and 19 seconds of control time in that fifth round, but she just ate so much damage. And you gotta, criteria number one, you gotta score damage over control. control. And although she had like control for 80% of that round, 90% of that round, she was eating shots the entire time. So I'd have to go back and watch round one to see how close it actually was, because all media scorecards are on the Kiason side. Got to believe they gave her the first 2 rounds, just as the two judges that actually gave the fight to Kiason. Here's a sketchy part. The two judges that gave it to Kiason both scored round 3 for Kiason. Very weird.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That is,
My guy Camijo was correct on that one. Maybe not the first round, but the third round, he was the only one that gave her the third round.
Yeah, he was the only one that the third round's to me clearly the only round you can give to Norma Dumont, in my opinion, just for exactly. She's throwing the strikes, she's doing everything, she's landing good, clean shots that are connecting. I mean, you go by the letter of the law of what the score, what the criteria is. Junichiro, he got that third round right, but I didn't see her winning the first round at all. I thought really it was pretty much one-way traffic up until we got to that third round. But nonetheless, Kiason gets the win. She says in her post-fight interview she wants to stay at 145. It's tough to cut down. True, but there are no fight. There's no division in here anymore. Like I don't know where we go from here.
Or Zane Farr, or whatever her name was.
Yeah, like that's great, and I know it's tough to get down those 10 pounds, but there is no division here. There haven't been rankings for like a year in this division. Yeah. So I don't think where you go.
I don't think there's ever been rankings.
I think there were, but then once we lost the likes of Megan Anderson and things like that, they haven't had anyone ranked inside the division. It's just Amanda Nunes champion. So I don't know where we go, Macy. Maybe she's automatically in line for a title shot at some point in 3 years.
Well, we were talking about it for Norma, right? I think we were talking about if Norma gets a dub here, she likely lines herself with the title shot. But that momentum gets stopped now, especially with her missing weight. That didn't help you either. But yeah, good win for Kiason. I've never really been the biggest on her, but this is a solid win for her.
Yeah, she's one of those fighters where, like, talented, she's not gonna, you're not gonna scream and run to the TV to see her fight, but she's talented. She's got a lot of those John Fitch vibes where, she comes in, she's talented, can maybe put on a performance like that, but she wins enough and she keeps getting thrown out there.
I'd say she's more physically gifted than she is talented, and I don't mean that as a negative towards her. I think she uses her frame very well, but I think if you put the skill set that she has into somebody like maybe with a Norma Dumont frame, she's probably not as successful in my opinion. But she's getting the wins. That's all that matters.
She is getting the wins. That is all that matters. She is now 8-2 as a professional mixed martial artist. And then we go down to the flyweight division here. Brandon Royval, Matt Schnell, Raw Dog versus the Danger Zone. And this was a fight that entered the danger zone very early, as we expected it to. It was a wild first round where Schnell looked really good early. Royval, as per usual, gets in these chaotic situations, but always survives and was able to take the back there of Matt Schnell and come away with the guillotine choke and gets a huge win for Brandon Royval here, who now has won 2 fights in a row. Finally gets a finish, the first finish he's had since he finished Kai Kara France back at UFC 253. So a great win for Royval and proving he's one of the most exciting guys at 125 pounds and in the mix maybe to get a title shot. I don't know if he does, but Dana White's saying that the 4th Moreno-Figueiredo fight probably won't happen. And, if you're a fighter in that division, you're saying hallelujah, because it can't just be 2 guys fighting for 1 belt. There's a lot of contenders in there, and Brandon Royval is one of them.
You think they're gonna line up Kai Kara France possibly with the title fight now, right? That's a big Askarov win that he got back in March, so he will likely get the first crack. That seems to be the way that they're going to be rolling with that. In regards to Brandon Royval, you nailed it, man. Great performance from him. That's a classic Raw Dog performance. Now I believe that was his 6th fight in the UFC. That was his 6th fight in the UFC. 5 of them has finished inside the distance. Like 2 of them obviously he ended up losing. There was that weird Brandon Moreno one, and then the Alexandre Pantoja one. We know Pantoja is just a wizard on the ground, and he was able to get the better of Royval there. But that's what Royval does, man. He puts himself in the fire. It's almost similar to what Joe Lozon was saying about Justin Gaethje, right? He's the type of guy that will light himself on fire just to burn you a little bit. That's
Yeah.
Brandon Royval as well. He will get dropped, just as we've seen in that fight, in the Kai Kara France fight, but he gets his wits about him. That's where he thrives, and then he catches his opponent slipping, ends up getting their back or getting the guillotine choke and taking that home with them. 6 out of his 20 total fights have finished inside the distance. That's a damn good percentage in hit rate for a flyweight, right? Flyweights normally go the distance. They don't really have crazy knockout power. They're not this crazy jujitsu, offensive jujitsu minded guys. That's not what the majority of flyweights do. But Brandon Royval does. That's why he's always going to be excited. And that's why I wouldn't even be mad if they did end up giving him a title shot. The guy is a fun fighter. He'll always be a fan-friendly fighter. And to finally see him get it done in front of a live crowd, a sold-out crowd, that was even better. And you could just see the elation on his face when he got that post-fight interview with Joe Rogan there. Keep giving me some raw dog. Keep throwing him in there. Let him work his way up, whether it's wins, whether it's losses, whatever it is. I feel like Brandon Royval is going to be a UFC lifer at this point in time, considering what he brings to the table.
Well, Brandon Royval, as of today, as we are talking, is sitting 6th in the UFC flyweight division. I expect when they update the rankings, him to be inside the top 5. I'm not saying he gets the title shot next. I think, as we said, Kai Kara France probably deserves that title next. That title shot next, especially the performances that he's racked up as of late. He probably gets the next shot. But hey, got to remember who did beat Kai Kara France. It was Brandon Royval. So hey, Brandon Royval, like as you said, an exciting guy. I would love to see him be a UFC lifer because hey, flyweight needs guys like this. They all can't be those technical, point fight, close matchups. You need someone that's willing to get in there and throw everything, including the kitchen sink at opponents, and that's what Brandon Royval does. And getting that tight guillotine choke against Matt Schnell. I don't know where Matt Schnell goes from here. I mean, it's been difficult for him to get some fights going. He's now lost 2 in a row. And Schnell's one of those guys that it was a tough stylistic matchup. He had to make those shots that he landed early count. They did, from the judges, but you got to, keep going on and try to find a way to finish Royval because his style, he would love to have continued that fight going, but you put yourself in a bad spot, Royval's going to make you pay.
Yeah, that's what. Now, actually, I thought it was a 2-fight losing streak for Schnell. It technically it is, but the last one obviously got overturned because of the Bontarine positive test there. Yeah, keep Matt Schnell around. He's another guy that's very exciting, very fun to watch. A ton of fun fights for him to have in the top 10 there. Maybe line him and David Dvorak up next, who's also coming off a loss as well. Yeah, I'm excited, man. Flyweights are still exciting, especially when you have a guy like Raw Dog in the mix.
And then let's move from the smallest division for the men in the UFC, that flyweight, to the heavyweights. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, Blagoy Ivanov. And this was actually a much better fight than I thought it would be. I thought there were moments there where Big Blagoy was able to tag and hurt Rogerio de Lima. And then Blagoy kind of got tired there in the later rounds, and especially the third where de Lima, he tried to turn the tide. He won the round, but didn't do anything really spectacular to steal or anything the fight. And, Blagoy Ivanov comes through. He wins this fight as a unanimous decision. And I think all judges got it right. I had it 29-28 Ivanov. The judges had it. I'm sure you had it the same way. And our boy Blagoy gets a victory here. It doesn't hit the prop of the submission at like plus 500, but he does get a victory.
Yeah, Rogan was pretty much on the head here with how Blagoy fights, right? He does just enough without having to do any more, right? Like he doesn't fully commit on takedowns. He doesn't fully commit on being in the clinch. But one thing you can kind of bang on or trust in him is just always going forward. He's always going for it. He's putting his punches together, putting his opponents on his back foot. And that's what optically looks great for the judges, which is why I think he ended up getting that third round. MMA Decisions actually has the third round from fan scoring, 83 total scorecards, 50.6% scored it for Ivanov round 3, and then 48.2 scored it for De Lima, and then 1.2% scored it a draw. But Yeah, I thought it was right. I don't think that last takedown that Delima landed was enough to nullify the work that Blagoy, or I like to call him Blaggy Boy, was able to put together up for the majority of that fourth round. Good one for Ivanov. Good way to come back after such a long layoff for him as well. Let's keep him busy again, man. Now he's at Extreme Couture. Now he's living here in Vegas full time. Keep the man busy, and I think he wants to do the same.
Looking at the media scores, they were kind of split on this one where the majority had 29-28 Ivanov, but there were a good amount of people that had it 29-28 for Delima. So once again, it just goes to what you see and why judging is so subjective. But I don't think it's a fight anyone's going to riot in the streets over about who got the decision or anything of that nature. But hey, our boy Blagoy comes through and gets a victory, and still a durable heavyweight. And being a heavyweight, you can last longer. I mean, this is a man that wasn't he stabbed in the neck or shot in the neck?
In the heart.
In the heart. Okay, so it was the heart. I thought it was the neck, but hey,
he
anyone
does
that
have
stabbed a shot.
He does have some sort of a thing there. It might have been because he had to get a trachea where
I
they'll
think it was
insert it
the
through the
trachea,
neck. That's probably what it is.
But anyone that stabbed a shot in the heart, tough as nails, and like a mixed martial arts fight's not going to do anything to scare you or anything of that nature. And Blagoy comes through with the victory. Andre Fialho taking on Cameron Van Camp in the welterweight division. I said as they were walking out, Andre Fialho is going to bring the violence here and kind of wake up this crowd, as it was. There were good prelims, but back to back decisions. And then here comes Andre Fialho, a guy that's having the second wind of his career. Got tagged early by Mr. Van Camp, but once you tag Andre Fialho, it's like you woke him up. And I think Van Camp thought, I got him hurt. I'm going to go in for the kill. Watch out for that counter punching that Fialho brings to the table, as he absolutely hurt and dropped and gets the finish there on Cameron Van Camp. A tough guy, like I said, for Van Camp to make his UFC debut against was someone that's had such experience in mixed martial arts and experience on big shows, whether they're PFL, LFA, and now UAE Warriors, and now the UFC. And great for Andre Fialho to find this run that he's on. Like, he's quickly becoming Dana White's favorite. He wins a performance of the night bonus and says he wants to fight like next month. So Dana's probably going to try to find a way to get him a fight. And I'm loving to see what we're seeing here, that Fialho, he's putting it all together and becoming maybe not a contender, but an exciting and player at 170 pounds.
5 out of his last 6 fights have all been first round KO victories for him. If you want to extend it one more fight to James Vick, it's 6 out of 7 where he's finished his opponents. That James Vick fight obviously going into the second round. But yeah, the hellacious puncher, man. Ed has a tremendous amount of power. He was just waiting for his opportunity. As soon as it presented himself, he unloaded on that big shot and he was able to drop Van Camp. Like you said, Van Camp was looking good, man. He was really putting his punches together. I'm excited to see how they match him up moving forward as well, because I feel like he could be one of those guys that is all action as well, that will give us very entertaining fights. This was not the one, though. Fialho was the much better striker, way too much power for him, lands a beautiful punch there and puts him down and puts him out. So yeah, big win for Fialho. Like you said, Dana loves him, right? Dana was being asked afterwards. He even got Fialho barging into his green room during the prelims there and said, hey, put me on the next card, put me in Singapore, whatever it is, just keep me busy. And how can you blame the guy, right? When you have somebody just going out there and starting an opponent's not taking any damage or any crazy damage that will likely keep him out for a long time. Stick him in there. Let's make him the new Cowboy Cerrone. Let's make him the new Neil Magny, I think, who was the other guy taking a bunch of fights. Keep him busy. Let's go. Let's see how far he can take it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see where he goes. I've been high on Fialho pretty much since last year when he really started to turn the tide from ex-MMA and UE Warriors. And, just seeing a guy evolve who's been to a big stage before and things didn't go his way in that PFL season back in 2019. And now all of a sudden, one of the most exciting guys that the UFC has on their roster for his activity, and he hits like a truck. And you can always love that. And, if the UFC, they continue to look to, I don't know what the status of MMA in Portugal is, but hey, they got a fighter, their first ever fighter from Portugal. If you ever wanted to headline a fight night out there in Europe, say, 2023 or maybe even late 2024, Andre Fialho is your guy right there. And he's, strike while the iron's hot, I guess. But hey, he's putting it together. And you love to see it too. Veterans that kind of have gone through some adversity and they've turned another corner. And, Sanford MMA proving why it's one of the best gyms in the world.
I love Stanford. I love every guy that goes down there. They know that they can make a legitimate change with their career. That's exactly what we're seeing with Andre Fiallo.
Moving on back to the flyweights, but to the women's variety here, Tracy Cortez, Melissa Gatto. A good win for Tracy Cortez. Her grappling is much superior in this fight. It was really nowhere for Gatto to go. Gatto had a moment in that second round where she tried an armbar, but Cortez was cool, calm, and collect, and got herself out of it, and then controlled the rest of the fight through. It's a good win for me for Tracy Cortez, but I'd like to see her game evolve. Like, what can she do on the feet with some striking, or someone pressing her with the striking? We know she's going to take you down. And I mean, there's things to be said. You know, the game plan is someone's going to take you down. And when you know what that is and you can't stop it, that's a good game plan. But she hasn't been able to. I just want to see her continue to evolve. It's a good win, but let's see where else she can go. Getting tested, put on her back, showcasing that jiu-jitsu, or having to stand in there and mix it up on the feet. But hey, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But she's going to need to be tested, I think, the next time out.
Yeah, I talked to her coach Santino DeFranco after the fight. I just sent him a couple of DMs. He's part of my coach's main event marathon show there, and I congratulated him on the Cortez win. And he said I handpicked that fight. He goes, I knew the result before that even happened because I felt it was such a great opponent for Tracy Cortez. One of the other things he said is they asked for them to fight some other opponents, but after a year off, they wanted a more favorable matchup. And as soon as they brought up Melissa Gatto's name, they're like, "Yep, let's go with that one." And he knew what he was doing, and he knew that the grappling was going to be in their favor. I thought it was going to be a little bit too much for Cortez, considering how offensive minded Melissa Gatto is. But credit to Cortez, man. Her grappling defense looked superb that night. In terms of you wanting to see her strike more, I agree. I want to see her tested in that realm. But the issue is, why should she if she's already having these this grappling success? Like, if she were to go out there and just strike with Melissa Gatto, that's a very difficult task, right? Gatto strikes, she strikes pretty heavily. She has good range, she has great kicks. We've obviously seen her dispatch of a couple of opponents now. Why play with fire? Let's get this into our realm. And she knows she had the advantage there. She trusts her takedown defense, she trusted her submission defense, and that was enough to keep her out of trouble. And she was able to get the better shots there. I thought the tide was turning in that second round, though, because Gatto won that on pretty much every judge's scorecard there, the round two, that is. And I thought she was going to start to struggle to keep Gatto down. But man, she made the adjustments, and she rolled through her in that round three. There was no question about it that she just had a little hiccup, but she managed to get back to work, and it paid off. Good win for her. Let's keep her busy though, again, right? Like, she's been out for a while after that Justine Kish fight. Let's keep her at it. Keep developing.
Yeah, her last fight before that, he said the Justine Kish fight's April of 2021. So a little more than over a year she was away. So yeah, we should need to see her active, and I just want to see what she's going to do to evolve. I just want to see how she handles being in that pressure situation, because sure, it's great when you're the hammer and your opponents are the nail, but sometimes you are the nail and you're being hammered on by your opponents. And obviously being in a relationship with Brian Ortega, that's got to help evolve her game, especially on the ground side of things. Maybe look for a little bit more submissions. Who knows? But Tracy Cortez is talented, 28 years old, will be 29 this December, but still hasn't had a finish in the UFC. And I think obviously we're high on her. She's got a great story, but I think we'd like to see her get a couple finishes in there. As it's great to get wins, but if you just decision people all the time, it hurts, I guess, your rise up the ranks of where she wants to be and where I think she can be.
From a stylistic standpoint, I would love to see her against number 15, Erin Blanchfield. Like, it would be a very good test for both women, because they're both grapple heavy and grappling minded, grappling oriented. So who will get the better in that situation? Maybe we'll see them really test out their striking as well, and that's where we'll get those questions answered. I wouldn't mind that next up. I don't like the whole narrative of burning two contenders or two up and comers by making them fight too early. But just from a curiosity standpoint, I wouldn't mind seeing how they match up there and how that transpires.
Yeah, we'll see where they go here, and hopefully they can keep getting Tracy Cortez being active. But good win for her as well in her home state of Arizona. Yep. So that's a big bonus as well. Staying with the flyweights, but back to the men variety, CJ Vergara, Cledson Rodriguez. This was a fun prelim, good back and forth moments. Overall, I thought Rodriguez did enough to win the fight. I thought he had the better moments overall in that fight, especially in the third round. It was 1-1 for me going into the third. And while Vergara, he himself had moments, I thought the better body of work there was from Rodriguez. And I believe everyone else kind of felt the same way I did, except for the judges here. If we look at how it was scored, there was one judge had it, or one media score had it for Vergara.
Which judge, my guy, Jason?
Oh, our boy, Mr. Kenichiro Kamijo. He had it 29-28 for Rodriguez. So maybe he actually was doing a little bit better than I thought he was, other than maybe one round in one of the fights we talked about.
So the reason I brought him up at the beginning of the show was more so because like there were a couple spots where I'm like, okay, he was actually doing some good things there. The Rodriguez one was the one that obviously started off the night for him. The Dumont one, not a good scorecard, but at least he was the correct judge in giving the third round, being the only judge that gave the third round to her. And the Danny Roberts Trinaldo 10-8 round. Maybe Trinaldo didn't deserve all three rounds, but he definitely deserved a 10-8 at minimum in that second round. And Kamijo was the only judge that gave that to him. So yeah, I thought Kamijo was on the nose here with the Rodriguez fight. I put it out there that I thought Vergara let the fight slip through his fingers in that last round because he just didn't show enough urgency. And somebody, one of my buddies tweeted back to me. He goes, "What are you talking about? CJ clearly won that fight." I'm like, "What are you talking? Like, I don't think clearly. I think it's a close fight. You could make an argument for both sides, but I thought Rodriguez, came away with that." And they read the decision, and I'm like, "Oh man, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I got to watch this back." Then you go to the almighty MMA decisions. That's where kind of you get a little bit more confidence if you're the contrarian take, or you believe you're the contrarian take. And then, like you said, a ton of media scorecards for Rodriguez. The fans scoring almost 90% of people believe that Rodriguez deserved to win round 3. Yeah, I feel bad for the kid, but from a betting perspective, I would give you some inside baseball on the betting perspective here. People that bet on minus 350 favorites and they lose that close of a fight, it's difficult to truly cry out robbery from a betting perspective to be like, hey, my guy deserved to win that fight. Not really, though. Like if you were the guy that had the balls to bet on CJ Vergara, your analysis pays off, because the fight played out much closer than minus 350 Clayton Rodriguez. It was a very close fight. Vergara had his moments, and he made Rodriguez very much work for that fight. But yeah, luckily the underdog pulls it off here for the people that took the shot on the value side on Vergara. I was very close to betting on Clayton myself. I'm glad that I stopped, because it's not often that you see big favorites come off the Contender Series and actually be successful. From the Contender Series, they're meant to look very good, right? That's the whole point of the Contender Series. Go out there and have a very impressive performance, then you'll get signed to the UFC. So most of these guys come over super hyped. There's another guy that's fighting this weekend, Jake Hadley. He's a solid favorite over a veteran, Alan Nascimento. And I'm looking at Nascimento like, hey, maybe Nascimento has what it takes to give Hadley some problems. That's what happened here as well. I didn't give Vergara the respect he deserved before the fight. And right from the jump, man, he made it a very, very close fight. And say what you want about the decision, if you're that big of a favorite, you should have more of a dominant victory than even leaving it to the judges to that extent. So I scored it for Rodriguez. Seems like a lot of people scored it for Rodriguez. We can't be mad, because there's always decisions like this week in and week out.
I don't think anyone's like, I'm not mad. I mean, that's just how it is. I thought if any fight was going to probably, when you look back at this card, any fight that would be maybe too close to call or anything, this was the one, because they both had Rodriguez had his moments in the first round. Vergara came back much more aggressive in the second round. Landed that beautiful body kick to Rodriguez that did hurt him. And it looked like Vergara was coming to put it, the finishing touches on. As well, that's where he got full on grabbed the fence and landed the ground and pound, and grabbed the fence later on in that fight, where Keith Peterson maybe letting some nonsense go here in this fight, where he no warnings or anything, where the past month I've seen Jason Herzog yell at fighters for putting their toes in the fence, and yet here's Keith Peterson not seeing a blatant fence grab or anything of that nature. But it was a close fight. Good for Vergara to find, he he did what he had to do. I didn't think that he won the fight, but hey, he gets a much needed win and stops puts the end to an undefeated run of a really hot prospect coming in. Or sorry, Rodriguez fell to 7-2, but a hot prospect coming in from Brazil. And now Vergara moves himself to 10-3, and hey, flyweight needs more people to get going, and there's a lot of interesting matchups here for Vergara, a guy that's defied the odds time and time again. If you look back when he fought on the regional scene out there in Fury FC out
Jacob
in Texas,
Silva.
his win against that Jacob Silva win, huge, and then what he did in the Contender Series, and he had a debut in Madison Square Garden. Like, you know what, nothing's gonna shock you after that. So a good win for Vergara, even though I didn't think.
Oh, did my guy kick himself
I lost
there?
the show
Yes.
for 2 seconds. Yeah, I hit the wrong button for a second there. But yeah, good win for Vergara, who now goes to 10-3. But you want to talk about a great performance, and unfortunately, she didn't get a bonus or anything like that. Lupita Godinez, like, we saw an evolved version of Lupita Godinez here, where she put an absolute beating here on Ariana Carnelosi, who I thought was broken by the time the second round came to an end. Like, just the way that Godinez was able to land punches in that fight were impressive, and then just change levels. Like, 1-2, I've hurt you, and you're thinking about the next shot, and I'm gonna huge pick you up and like Arn Anderson spine buster you, type of a takedown. Like, I was blown away at the skill level that Lupita had. You can see her growing as her time goes here in the UFC, and a serious real player at 115 pounds in the UFC. Maybe within a year or so, she can be, nearing that line for a title shot. But a performance like this, I was just blown away at how talented Lupi was here.
Yeah, the commentators were all over as well, right? Joe was super impressed. DC was super impressed. And how could you not be? Especially that takedown in the third round where she was just being patient, waiting for Carnelosi to throw that right hook. And as soon as she did, dipped under and just got that takedown so easily. That is a championship type performance.
Yeah.
All around great performance, great hands, great combinations. I can't wait to see how they match her up, man. Like, she has a lot of potential, and obviously she fell flat in her debut against Jessica Pena, but I think she's shown time and time again that she can go out there, and when she's fighting at her weight class, she is a legitimate threat. Is she? She's not ranked at all, is she?
No, but I think she's
She's not
gonna
ranked.
either be inside the top 15 or just, like 16, hovering inside there. That's going to be someone where she's going to fight someone, from 10 to 15 next to get her inside the top 15 contention, because a performance like that, you deserve to be ranked or nearly ranked.
I believe Brianna Van Buren or Brianna Fortino has a fight matched up, but I wouldn't mind her fighting her, or even the winner of Verna Jandiroba and Angela Hill, who fight this weekend as well. Solid step up. You're facing a name, and we'll get to see if you're actually the goods or not against a solid UFC veteran. So yeah, big future for Lupi Godinez if she can continue that type of performance and that type of skill. She's gonna be trouble for a lot of women. Like, they're already talking about how she might be a better version of Carla Esparza because she actually has hands.
Yeah.
We'll see if that ever happens, but we'll see.
Man, what a fight that would be. What a trajectory of performances on that card to last night. So who knows? But I mean, I'm happy to see just Lupi continue to get better. Like, as we said, she's a gamer. She's someone that Dana White likes because she fought at 115 one weekend last October, and then at 125 the following week, and proved that she was too small for that weight class at 125 pounds. 115 is her weight class, and I really think she's got potential to be fighting for a title because she's only going to get better from performances like that. Like, and as they said on the commentary, like, she's training wrestling with her sister, who's one of the top wrestlers out of all of Canada right now on the world stage. So you train at that high level with have a high level Olympic level style wrestling athlete in your family. That's just only going to make you a better fighter and, representing the pride of Vancouver, British Columbia by way of Mexico. So, hey, I'm all in on Lupi Godinez.
Me too. If you aren't after yesterday, check your pulse, or get with it, because Lupi's gonna have some good work here.
And then the opener, Journey Newsom, Fernie Garcia. Honestly, I didn't get a chance to see this fight as I had just come in. I just saw the tail end of it, but Journey Newsom picked up a win, was able to put the pressure on. Hearing from the commentary, it looked like Garcia had moments, but didn't follow up on them. I don't know. You obviously got to see the fight there, Manpreet?
Yeah, I did have a bet on Journey Newsom as well, so I was very much intrigued by that fight. I wasn't a big fan of how we initially approached it because all he was doing was just spamming spinning back kicks. Like he just kept throwing spinning stuff and was missing by a mile as well. And Fernie had some success early in that fight, but Journey really started to put it on him. He started to let his hands go. Finally, landed a couple of takedowns here and there, but he hurt Fernie a bunch of times on the feet. And yeah, solid return for him, especially after being off as long as he has, and especially coming off that knockout loss to Randy Costa in his last fight. It seemed like he was a little bit tentative at first, maybe a little too tentative to get hit. But as the fight started to wear it on, you start to see him get more and more comfortable and him get a big win there. So yeah, I was very happy for Journey Newsom there. Obviously happy to win a bet on him, but also happy for him as a fighter himself because to be out of the cage for that long and then finally come back in front of a crowd like that and get a win, that's big. That's big for your confidence. And I think he has a decent shot to be a top 15 fighter. He just has to put it all together. Yeah, and this was a good way for him to get back on track and get that dub. So good one for Newsom. Can't wait to see how they match him up moving forward.
It's a good win too to stop the bleeding, get that first official win inside the
Yeah.
UFC in a division where there are sharks everywhere at 135 pounds, and you can't be a little fish in that division. You need to, bulk up, eat some chum and find a way on through because that's what Journey Newsom does. Keeps himself in the UFC here. In the lone bantamweight fight, kind of surprising just how deep that is. But hey, you got to spread that division around. But good win for Journey Newsom. And then overall, we look here. Performance of the night bonus obviously went to Michael Chandler. He gets $50,000. Fight of the night, Brandon Royval, Matt Schnell, $50,000 to both Royval and Schnell. And another performance of the night to Andre Filau and Cameron Van Camp, where, as we said, Andre Filau got $50,000. And the crypto bonuses went to Rose Namajunas, which I'm shocked at that. But it's fan voting, right? That's why we don't have people don't want fan voting for like the NBA and things of that nature. But Rose winning one, Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira was third. So that's $30,000 in Bitcoin to Rose, $20,000 to Michael Chandler, and 10 for Du Bronx. So hey, fan voting is always an interesting gimmick, and Rose has a lot of fans, though. That's one thing for sure.
UFC 124. That was the last time where they had well, they did do the crypto voting for the last pay-per-view as well, but UFC 124, George St. Pierre and Josh Koscheck walk away with the fight of the night in a mediocre fight. And earlier that night, Sean Pierce and Matt Riddle go to war and they don't walk out with any type of bonus. I remember seeing Sean Pearson. He actually used to train at the gym that I worked at Grants MMA, and I remember seeing him after the fight. And I asked him, I'm like, did they at least chip you off a little bit, like backstage something? He goes, nothing. I'm like, oh my god, man, you guys left it all out there. You guys were clearly the fight of the night. It's when it comes to fan voting, it's a popularity contest. Half these people don't even pay attention. So very, very unfortunate. Like they got to find a way to figure that out. Maybe just find a fan base, like maybe 200 fans that they trust will give legitimate votes, and let them vote on it. Let's do that.
Well, that'll be hard to do, but hey, if you're Rose Namajunas, it's good to know that you are liked and beloved because you get 30,000 in Bitcoin dollars. But that'll wind us down after a wild and interesting week for the UFC heading into this UFC 274 pay-per-view. Manpreet, always a pleasure chatting with you, breaking down fights, looking at events, and also getting the double dip on here, preview and recap. So we kind of got to look at ourselves as making some bad predictions, praising our predictions, praising your bets. I had only one bet hit. But nonetheless, a good time as always to chat with you. And hopefully, Manpreet, we get to do it again sometime. And once again, where can people find you out there on social media? And what do you got coming up this week as the ball never stops rolling in the realm of mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I believe we got 3 straight events now until we finally get a week off, and then it's back at it in June. But no, Jason, it's always a pleasure chopping it up with you. I love speaking with you. We have such a love for this game and such knowledge that it's not often that we get to sit down with somebody that shares it just as much with you. So it's been awesome, really chopping it up with you over the last couple of days. I would love to talk regional MMA with you as well. We got BTC
Oh,
coming up again in
me
June.
too.
Unfortunately, it's the same night as my wedding, Jason, so I cannot be there. But I'll definitely be there for the next one. But yeah, good luck with that for sure. I can't wait to see how it goes down. In terms of myself, Manpreet Jhass on YouTube is pretty much where you can find all my stuff. Even if you just type in UFC Lockcast, you can find pretty much my solo podcast there. I do propping you up on the All Star with my guy Cody Saftik. That's every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Fridays, I do the Ultimate Weigh-In Show on my channel as well. Pay-per-view fight weeks, we do Coach's Main Event Marathon, where we have Eric Nixick, Cody Donovan, Mark Montoya, James Krause, Santino DeFranco, and I know I miss Tyson Chartier all come on to my show to break down the main event or co-main event of every single pay-per-view. So all that great good stuff on my YouTube channel. Make sure you guys go check that out. And then in terms of social media, at MMA LOTN, as you guys see on the hat there, on all social media platforms. Yeah, that's where you guys can catch me. I am 200 followers short of 10,000 followers on Twitter. So if you guys want to hit your boy with a follow, that would be greatly appreciated to finally hit that milestone. Jason, once again, thank you so much for letting me come on here and chop it up as a fan, not so much as a gambler, because that's what I do every single week. But I'm glad to finally chop it up as a fan. Appreciate it.
Well, always thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can make our schedules work again, where we can come do this again for a UFC pay-per-view down the line. I know there's plenty of them coming up. We are a month away now from the next one, UFC 275, as UFC makes its debut in Singapore with a one-night tournament, a couple tournaments like Thursday, Friday before. So there's a lot of other content going on. So it's going to be a fun time. But yeah, as you said, 2 more shows in May, and then that Memorial Day weekend, they do take the week off. We get a little bit of a reprieve to regroup and get ourselves, a second win before the monster rolls on, as it always does in the realm of mixed martial arts. But as always, Manpreet, thank you for your time, chatting up for over an hour and a half with me here, talking UFC 274. Definitely, if you like this, hit the subscribe button. I'll be bringing more people on to break down events, talk about all the news and things of that nature. But once again, Manpreet, thank you for your time, and we'll see you all. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And once again, happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's